which is good because the loonies come by his house. So Artie Lange, the story I got is he's addicted to drugs, right? And I think what he does is cocaine and heroin, but he's scared of needles, so he snorts cocaine and heroin. Not uncommon with comedians, actually. Isn't that what Richard Pryor blew himself up doing? What was it, a speedball where he mixed coke and crack? Or I don't know, crack and heroin? It must be a weird buzz. I've done both those drugs. Coke is chatty Cathy powder, and heroin is just like falling asleep during fellatio. So I don't know how you could be a chatty Cathy while you're falling asleep receiving oral. That seems like a bizarre high to me, but it's probably great. I mean, if Artie's that addicted, it must be great. What did you say? Pryor suffered a heart attack. He was taken. No. That doesn't help, Dave. I don't care. Find out what he did, like a speedball. Richard Pryor burst into flames. Find out what that was. Although we will have moved on for the conversation by the time you dig it up. It'll be boring and pull us back just like it's doing right now. So forget it. So I think he was snorting coke and heroin, and your nose is a very sensitive chap. That membrane there, it's for detecting the slightest of smells. It's one of the reasons a cold is such a nightmare is because that one vital resource, the tympanic membrane. No, it's not tympanic. That's on a frog. Your mucous membrane, that slender, delicate membrane in your nose, is doing a lot of work. And when it's screwed up, your whole head is screwed up. So he was doing coke and heroin, and then he tweets out a picture of his face where his nose looks like a caricature of W.C. Fields. You know that puppet show, Spitting Image? Excuse me, I got a bit of a cold. It looked like a spitting image puppet of W.C. Fields. So Keith the cop, who runs Compound Media, just goes, let's have a little break. I think he takes him to rehab, goes to rehab. So we have, Aaron Berg fills in for him for a week, and I fill in for him for this week. CRTV says it's cool, just promote your show, which I do, which I'm doing right now. crtv.com/Gavin. Get Off My Lawn with Gavin McInnes. Very funny show, very exciting. We go through the news and make fun of everyone. I'm going to release a sizzle reel, actually, maybe today on my YouTube of some of the past highlights of the past. I think we're up to like episode 60 or something. So he says, I'm going to show up. I've been clean. It's been 35 days. I can't believe it's been 35 days since he tweeted that picture of his giant nose, but time flies. So maybe it was. So he shows up on the show, which is weird. It's sort of like you're on a first date with someone and then their ex-husband shows up. And they're going to get back together. That's actually a terrible analogy because Anthony and Artie, I think Artie starts this Monday. In 3 days, he's going to be back there. But I don't know if that's a good idea because I don't think he was clean when he showed up. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying all this, but hold on. He comes careening into the studio, right? And I'm worried that he thinks that I'm here to take his job. I don't want that job. My job at CRTV is great. Even if they offered me more than I'm making at CRTV, I've got a contract with CRTV for a long time. I'm not leaving. So I'm just doing a solid. I have no interest in Artie Lange's job. I did a couple years ago, but I've since moved on to greener pastures. And I love Artie. Like, if you have a terrible thing to do, like the dishes or fixing up your workshop or cleaning up the garage, you put on the Artie and Anthony show, and it's just the time whips by, and doing your job is fun. It's fun doing the dishes because it's almost like, when you're having a long dinner and you're playing with the candle wax during a conversation. It's sort of like that. You have something to do while you're listening to this. And, when they talk about a picture, you can stop and look at it. Great show. So I want that to continue. But anyway, now I'll talk trash. So he comes careening into the studio, spinning, rotating 360 degrees. Now, we've all sort of lost our footing sometimes, but this was at ballerina levels. And you can look this up online, compoundmedia.com. He's got the gloves that you handle negatives with, right? Those white gloves. And they're not, I'm not talking about a butler white gloves. Hello, sir. where they're thick and they have those 3 lines in the back, like on Mickey Mouse's hands. I'm talking about cheap garbage, really, really, really thin cotton gloves, the kind that you buy in a pack of 50. So he's got those on. He has a cigarette, not lit, in his hand, and he's dressed like a homeless man. So he comes careening in, and he sits down, and I want to show that I'm not threatening your job, so I bow down to the alpha, and I move one chair over, and I don't say anything, and I let him talk. He's rambling on about Stuttering John, which is this comedian who was on the Whack Pack on Howard Stern, and Anthony and him both hate the guy, so it's a common ground they can always riff about. But for everyone else, they're like, I think I remember Stuttering John, especially millennials. They don't know who Stuttering John is, so it's a strange tangent to get on. And he says, I'm wearing these gloves because my hands are cracking because of the diabetes. Now, that's true that you have terrible circulation, right? But if your hands are so dry they're cracking, you'd have maybe surgical gloves on and tons of cream or something plastic, not thin cotton. Thin cotton is going to usurp the moisture from your hand. So that was weird. And then it gets weirder. He says that he's hanging out with a rapper named Crucifix, which I believe, but he had made a joke about a prison guard who was there. I don't believe that. And to punish him, they put him in Gen Pop, general population. I don't believe that for 1 second. And I know cops. I talk to cops about this. And they go, when a celebrity's in there, you're shitting your pants because you know every single molecule of his experience is going to be made public. And if you even have the slightest screw up, if you stray from procedure 1 iota, you could lose your pension, lose your job. So you're walking on eggshells. And for that reason, they never put celebrities in Gen Pop. They don't put anyone remotely weird in Gen Pop. They don't put trannies in there, pedophiles. They probably wouldn't even put a punk in Gen Pop. Like if he had particularly colorful hair, I bet they would put him in a private cell just to be safe. It's not that corrections officers care about you. They just don't want to get in trouble. Because if you retire at 40, you make 80 grand a year. We're talking about millions of dollars are on the line here. So he says he went to Gen Pop. And then he says they were beating me and dragging me by my hair. Now, Artie's a fat guy. I don't think he'll deny that. I don't think you can grab him by the hair. That's like grabbing Jabba the Hutt by his eyelashes. The eyelashes are going to come out. His hair's not strong enough. What are you, Superman? I'm going to drag you by the cape? You can't drag Artie Lange by his thin gray hair. He has like 1,000 of them. You could count his hairs in an afternoon. So I don't believe that. And then he says, they got up there and they're beating me with this lead pipe, beat me in the back. What? I said to him, I go, what is this, Papillon? That might be an old reference for you, but it was an old Steve McQueen film, a true story about a guy who was in some ancient prison in the early 1900s. Like they don't, first of all, there aren't lead pipes. Lead pipes are from the 50s before we knew that lead gives you brain damage. Who has lead pipes lying around? It's like Bass Stickman is facing trial now because they claim his stick was a lead pipe. And Kyle, Bass Stickman goes, where am I going to get a lead pipe from? I bet they're $100 on eBay. They're probably illegal to sell. So you're telling me, Artie Lange, that prison guards held you down and beat you with a lead pipe repeatedly? And then he takes off his hat and he has a mullet. The front of his head is shaved. Close shave, military shave, but the back is still long. And he goes, and then they shaved my head. They said they weren't going to shave the whole thing, just the top. Now, this could just be comedy, and you're speaking in a colorful way to amuse people, but it's not even close to the truth, as far as I'm concerned. And I was talking to a cop about it later, and we both came up with this theory. He's on methadone. He is clean. He did kick heroin. He's still doing coke, which is why he was acting so kooky and doing spins and stuff. Still snorting it, still destroying that poor nose. You know what happens to these people? They lose their septum, the skin in between your nostrils. Bob Beckel has this too. And Artie, when I was on the show previously, I noticed he always has blood on his top lip. He always has a nosebleed, which he claims is a diabetes. But that's it's like a little kid with snot, like he could wipe it and then the red would just come back. Bob Beckel was the same way on the 5. right? The liberal that was on Fox News, he would get nosebleeds on the show. This membrane can't handle abuse. And you see that with British people. You know, British people do endless coke. It's totally normal to meet some British partying chick and she has no septum. That happened to Stevie Nicks too. She had to do her cocaine anally. Someone would just pour a little bump into her butthole. Lucky guy. Anyway, so I think he was on methadone and coke, and then the other theory that we're working on. And I'm sorry, Artie, if you're hearing this and this seems disrespectful, but just a theory. You were acting strange, and people come up with weird theories after you're acting strange. He says he's facing jail time for possession. So one is going to start pontificating about the details that surround this. We think, our theory is, that his withdrawals for heroin were so bad in the clink, where he was not in Gen Pop, he was in his own cell. He was probably scratching his head maniacally, the front of his head, and it was bleeding, and he had blood chunks and scabs in his hair, in the front of his hair. He also showed us his back, which looked really messed up, and he said that was from the lead pipe. I think he was scratching his lower back, too. You're constantly scratching when you're a junkie, especially when you're quitting. Your skin is on fire because the heroin's been taking care of all good feelings for many years. When you stop, your normal dopamine, your normal things, your normal endorphins, whatever you call them, they don't know how to release. The receptors are dead. So your whole body has third-degree burns, and you're constantly scratching, trying to stop the pain, the itchiness, the scratchiness. It's like full-body eczema. So I think his hair had blood chunks in it, and I think his back was destroyed, and I think he was scratching so much that he wore his fingernails off. He was probably scratching at the walls, too. I mean, heroin withdrawal is like going to hell. So the gloves were probably hiding the fact that all his fingernails are just bloody stubs. That is my theory. I have a theory that the brontosaur is skinny at one end, big in the middle, and then skinny at the other end. That's my dad's favorite Monty Python joke. I don't really get it, but it always seems to amuse him. And they're called a brachiosaurus now, Dad. So that was bizarre. And then Artie's saying, do I still got a job here? And Anthony goes, absolutely. And I'm sort of going, dude, I'm not here to mess with your job. I'm here to fill in while you try to stop doing coke. You clearly stopped doing heroin. You have no fingernails. But you got to stop doing coke. Your nose can't take it. And coke is great when you're a young man. Well, all drugs are bad, obviously. But the advantage with coke is you're a young man in New York City. You're out networking. You're out last night. You don't feel like going out, but some friends are in town and a client's in town, and you got to party till 2. Coke says, I'm going to make it feel like you haven't been out in a week, and you're finally allowed to go out. It turns every night into Friday. But as you get older, I don't know, you get holiday heart, you get heart palpitations, and the next day is just unbelievable AIDS because you drank more than you normally drink. I mean, it's not an old man's game. And I think Artie's much older than me. I'm a little concerned, actually, because genetically he's the same as my kids, 25% American Indian. And I worry that it's a genetic predilection, this tendency for addiction. I hope not. The internet says that's not genetic, Indians and booze. But it sure seems to be. I know it is with us Scots. We love our whiskey. And by the way, part of my death clamp on that kid was the bourbon turning me into groundskeeper Willie. So then the week gets pretty normal